21 from the KAplan worksheets. This was yesterday's homework, 21 through 30, and then we're going to do the next 10. It says, how do you find an original value that is a value before something increases or decreases by a certain percent? So for example, if something increased by 5%, and you want to find out what the original number was. So here's an example. After a 5% increase, the population was 59,346. That's an example of if you want to find out like what the original population was. So after it was increased by 5%, what you're going to do is add that percent to 100%. So what's 100% plus 5%? 105%. You're going to turn this into a decimal, so move the decimal 2 places over. So 1.05 of the original amount is now 59,346. How would you do this? You're going to divide 59,346 by 1.05, and that will give you the original population. If it says after a certain decrease, you would subtract it from 100. So if it's an increase, you do 100 plus. If it's a decrease, 100 minus. What formula is used to find a percent? It's the part is equal to percent times the whole. I want to give you 3 examples of this. So here is 3 examples. Okay, what you should do is turn these into equations whenever they ask you percent questions. So for the first one, it says, what is 12% of 25? The word what is your variable, x. The word is means equals. 12%, how do you make 12%, how do you write 12% in decimal form? 0.12. The word of in math means times in 25. So to answer the first one, what is 12% of 25? You do 0.12 times 25, and you'll get the answer. The next one says, 15 is 3% of what number? So change this into 15 equals 3%. How do you change 3% to a decimal? 0.03. The word of means times. What number is x? So in other words, 15 divided by 0.03 is what that number is. Right? And the last one. It says 45. Whoops. 45 is what percent? So x over 100. Of means times 9. So in other words, 45 is 9x over 100, and then cross multiply. So 4,500 equals 9x, and then divide, and the answer is 500. Next, how do you increase or decrease a number by a certain percent? So let's say you want to take a number and increase it by, let's say, 20%. Here's 2 examples. So if I asked you to take a number, 50, and I want you to increase it 20%, you're going to add 100% to 20%, which is 120%. Turn that number into a decimal and multiply that by the 50. So if you want to increase a number by a certain percent, if you want to make it 20% more, you add 20% to 100%, which is 120%. Turn that into a decimal and multiply that by the number. If you want to decrease a number by a percent, so the next example says decrease 75 by 10%. Now you're going to take that 10%, you're going to subtract it from 100, so you get 90%. Okay, so 90% of 75 now would be your answer. So to decrease a number by a percent, you subtract it from 100 and then multiply that number. Next. Midpoint. Do you guys remember the midpoint formula?
X1 plus X2 2.
Here's your midpoint formula. x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. What it is you're just adding up your two x's and dividing by 2, adding your two y's and dividing by 2. Think of average. So, if I gave you these two ordered pairs right here, how would you find the average of them? You would add these two x's up. 1, good job. 2 over 2 is 1, and then add these two up. And you get 1 also, 1, 1. What does circumference of a circle mean?
The area around, like the distance around,
Yep, it's like perimeter of a circle.
the 2 on 5.
Oh, I forgot number 25. 25. What type of angles, we'll get back to circumference. What type of angles form when two lines intersect?
So you're pairing vertical.
So if you have two lines that intersect, what are these two angles called? These are vertical. So if I say this is 50, what do you know about this one? It's the same. Then the angle next to this one is
130.
supplementary. So how would you figure out these two add up to be 180? So this would be 130 and this would be 130. Okay? The circumference of a circle is the distance around a circle. These two formulas say the same thing. Circumference is 2 times the radius times pi, or 2 times the radius is the diameter. So pi times d, or 2 pi r, those are two different ways. So if they give you the diameter, it's the diameter times pi. If they give you the radius, you double the radius and you multiply that by pi. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, what about, how do you find the length of an arc in a circle? Do you know what that even means?
Yeah.
So if you have a circle, so maybe you don't want to find all the way around the circle. Maybe you just want to find this part right here. This is called the arc length. What do you need to know? You need to know this angle. So let's say this is a 60-degree angle. And that's called N. So this is your central angle. So it's the angle measure over 360 times 2 pi r. So you take the central angle, divide it by 360, and multiply that by 2 pi r. You should have learned that in geometry last year.
Yes.
Did you learn that last year? Good job. So what does n represent? The angle. So you'll find out the arc length. What about the area of a circle? What's the formula for area of a circle? Pi r squared. Very good. Area of a circle is pi r squared. How do you multiply binomials? FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. You guys know that, right? Remember that, FOIL? How do you add or subtract polynomials? You combine like terms. What if it's a subtraction problem?
You distribute the
You have to distribute the negative. So make sure, should you change the variable, you keep the variable the same, and you just combine the coefficients. Next one. What is the difference of two squares? What does that mean? Oh, we missed one, I'm sorry. How do you multiply monomials? So if I gave you, these are two monomials, how do you multiply them? You multiply the coefficients, and what do you do with your variables? You just add the exponents. Yep. 32. How do you add and subtract monomials? Well, just like you do adding and subtracting polynomials, you just combine the coefficients. And you keep your variable the same. Do not change your variable. Difference of two squares has to be a minus sign, and you factor it with plus or minus.
It's the conjugate.
Huh?
It's the conjugate. It's like you have one and then you do the opposite.
Yes,
of that one.
yes, yes. Do you know what it means to solve in terms of, so if I give you this equation, it says, solve this in terms of x, what does that mean? Solve in terms of x.
Solve for
Solve
x.
for
Solve for x. So if you saw this is a very popular one. Solve for w. Solve in terms of w. This is the perimeter formula. How do you solve for w? What would you do?
Subtract
P
2.
minus 2L over 2.
P minus 2L, and then divide everything by 2. Okay? So solve in terms of means to solve that variable. You guys all know how to solve an equation, right? Solve a linear equation, you gotta collect like terms, get your x on one side, you know how to do that, right? That's basically pre-algebra stuff. How do you what does it mean to evaluate an expression, an algebraic expression? What does it mean?
Solve it?
It means plug those numbers, they're going to assign, they're gonna give you an expression, like I have x squared y. To evaluate that, it means to plug the numbers in and evaluate it. Okay? What about if it says, they give you an equation of a line, and they say find the slope.
It's the
I should have waved to the camera.
You're on YouTube.
ACT scores.
Thank you. Here, why don't you stop?
Some of them wrote their names on the booklets, so they get their booklets back. Others do not, so they just get a random one. If anyone's missing theirs, just send them to me.
Okay, thank
Should be
you.
everyone.
And it's theirs to keep?
It's theirs to keep.
Okay.
To review. 3 weeks.
no.
3 weeks? No.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Awesome. Okay, so if I give you an equation, I'm just making this up, how do you know what the slope is?
The thing in front of the x.
Not the thing in front of the x yet.
I know.
First get y by itself, so solve this in terms of y. So negative y equals negative 2x plus 4, and then change all the signs, right? So now,
Minus
you got lucky on that one, if you would have guessed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, why is,
Someone's
oh,
This one it was just a fluke that it worked out to be 2, and it is 2. But don't assume that it's always going to be that, because it usually doesn't happen. I just made this number up. So, the number in front of x is going to be your slope only when the equation's in slope-intercept form. Now, if they don't give you the equation, and if they give you 2 ordered pairs, you guys know the formula, right?
yeah.
Y1 minus y, do you take your 2
Equals
y's,
x by
subtract
x.
them over the difference of the x's? Okay. Okay, how do you find the y-intercept if you're given an equation of a line? What do you do? 2 things you can do. You can get it in slope-intercept form, and this number is going to be your y-intercept. If you don't feel like solving it for y, what's another thing you could do to find the y-intercept? Put a 0 in for x right here, and get rid of that so y is negative, the y-intercept is negative 4. And 2 more. What does median mean? Median. The median is the middle number. Now, what if there's an even number of numbers?
Then you have to.
You take the 2 middle ones and you average them, add them up and divide by 2. Do you just take the numbers as they are, or do you have to do something to those numbers? You have to put them in numerical order, least to greatest. Good job. What about the mode? What does mode mean?
Most.
Most often. What if no number occurs most often?
There's no-
There is no mode. What if two numbers occurred 3 times? List them both. Okay? So for homework, you're gonna do 41 through 50. And now let's do the multiple choice questions. Let's see how many right you got. Okay. Question number 1.
This is a hard one.
Question number 1. What'd you get for an answer? It says.
C.
A Celsius temperature can be approximated by having the difference of 32 and Fahrenheit temperature. It's half of the difference would be C. Number 2, what'd you get for an answer?
Eight.
A.
Sorry.
How do you do this one? You plug -5, this is evaluating for -5, so -5 squared minus 9 over -5 plus 3. So you have 25 minus 9, what's 25 minus 9? Is 16 over -2 is -8. Yes.
If you would have simplified that first. could
Yeah,
done
you
it.
could, good job. You could have factored this. Yep, you could have done that, canceled those out, and then plug -5 in here and you get -8. That's the other way you could have done that. Good job. Number 3, what answer did you get?
D.
E.
That's what I meant.
E. You foil. F-O-I. First, outer, inner, last, and collect like terms. So E. Let's see how many got the next number 4 right.
I probably did not.
Yeah, so
Number 4, did anyone pick K?
I did.
Oh,
Okay, K is the correct answer.
Okay, so let's write down the sheet.
So, how do you solve this formula? A equals P times 1 plus RT. How do you solve that for T? So I'm going to show you the work. Here's the formula. You're trying to get T by itself. So I would get rid of this P. P times, so it's A over P. Whoops, equals 1 plus RT. Now you want to get T by itself. This is what you're trying to solve for. So now subtract 1. Now we have to separate these two. So you're going to divide by R, divide this by R, but I'm not going to divide this fraction. I'm going to multiply by 1 over R. So in other words, A over PR, or RP, minus 1 over R is equal to T. But that's not one of your answers. You can get a common denominator. If you multiply this by P and this by P, A minus P over PR is equal to T. Here.
Yeah, that one is, wow.
AP prep.
Hey, number 5. Number 5, what'd you get?
I got A.
It is A, good job. Make sure you distribute the negative. 8 minus 7x plus 28. These two are like terms. There you go. Number 6, what'd you get? It is K.
Oh, okay.
You're gonna plug 1/3 in for x. 9 times 1/3 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 over 1/3, you're gonna flip and multiply. 1 over 1 times 3 over 1 is 3. Number 7. What'd you get? It is E. Now, I got rid of my decimal here. I multiplied this side by 10 and this side by 10, because I just didn't feel like dealing with the decimal. And you can do that. As long as whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. So I multiplied both sides by 10. Multiply by 10. So then I distributed the 2, you get 4x plus 2,940. Bring this 4x over here, which that's what you do when you solve equations. 6 divided by 2,940 is 490. Number 8, what'd you get? It is k. So what they're asking you is to get a common denominator, which is 21. So for the first fraction, I multiplied both by 3, and the second one I multiplied by 7. And so 12z plus 28r, they're both over 21, that's your answer. Okay. Number 9 I thought was one of the harder ones. It says, Sagan, Alex, and Lindsay are eating a round birthday cake. Sagan ate 3 slices. Alex ate 5 slices. Lindsay ate 1 slice. And what was left is 1 more than a third of the cake. So this is the leftover. 1 more than a third of the cake. That's what the cake is equal to. That's how many slices. So the 3 people ate this number of slices, and this was the leftover. So there was 1 more than a third of the cake. So now, how do you solve this for x? Well, if you add these 4 numbers together, you get 10. Now, I'm going to bring 1/3 over here. So I'm going to subtract a third from 1. What's 1 minus a third? It's
Negative
2/3. Now, how do you solve this?
26.
3 times 10 is 30. And divide by 2. So there's 15 slices of cake. Questions? Number 10. This one, you're just going to add 4 to negative 11, you get negative 7, multiply by 6, and divide by 5. That's pretty simple, okay? When do you flip the sign?
When you,
But anything multiply or divide by.
Yep. Number 11. It says the length of the Amazon Queen, it's 30 feet more than 4/5 the length of the Arctic wolf. So what you would have to do is take the wolf, multiply it by 4/5 and add 30 for them to be equal to each other. Because this is bigger than that, the wolf. The Amazon's bigger than the wolf, so you take the Amazon, and it would be equal to 4/5 times the wolf plus, so D. Number 12. For this one, you got F? You should have just stripped FOIL. The 2 middle ones cancel out, and I got this answer right here, and I said, wait, I don't see that answer. And then I looked at these and I said, oh, I know what they did, they took a 4 out. And there it is, J. Did you get that one? Okay, number 13. For this one, what you do, how do you solve this? Is a compound inequality. You're going to add 8 here, add 8 to 24, and add 8. So you get negative 8 is less than or equal to x, less than 32, which is C. Number 14. Which of the following is the factored form of that binomial, which is x squared minus 16. That's the difference of 2 perfect squares, x minus 4 times x plus 4, which is J. J is the correct answer. And the last one. This one was one of the harder ones too. it says, a bus drove for 6 hours. Remember, rate times time is distance. So if a bus drove for 6 hours, that's your time. And we don't know how fast. That's your rate, x. So 6x. Then, for 8 more hours, the bus drove 60 miles an hour, so rate times time. So 60 miles an hour for 8 hours. This entire trip took how long? 6 and 8 is, if it drove for 6 hours and then it drove for 8 hours, how long did that trip take? 14 hours. At a speed of 58 miles an hour. So that would be your equation, which would be E. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Good job, Zach.
Turn it off.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.